travelers, and welcome to the Diverse and Stars podcast. How are my loyal listeners? Thank you for your continued support. And remember, click that subscribe button, everybody. This is a very special episode because Todd Stashwick boards the mothership, known as Captain Shaw on the third season of Star Trek Picard. Now come aboard as we go traversing the stars. Hello, Mr. Stashwick. Thank you so much for coming to the Diverse and Stars podcast.
Thank you for having me.
It's a huge honor to talk with you. You are absolutely awesome. And I've been a fan of yours since Supernatural and the Changeling episode. So thank you.
Oh, wow. Thanks.
So I always start off with a question of inspiration. So what inspired your love of acting and who your earliest influences?
I was acting since I was a kid, just, playing action figures with my cousin. So I grew up wanting to be Tom Hanks and Bill Murray and influenced by David Letterman and Bruce Willis and all of those, 80s luminaries. They were my influences. And then as I get older, of course, like Daniel Day-Lewis and Johnny Depp and Robert Downey Jr. and all, and of course, wanting to be Han Solo most of my life. So somewhere between Bill Murray and Harrison Ford is my sweet spot. I like the scoundrels. I like the provocateurs. Yeah.
Well, I had the pleasure of interviewing Stephanie Czajkowski a few weeks back, and I heard that you were a teacher of hers. Now, was this for your is this for the HotHouse that you did improv, or yeah?
Yeah, I was. I had opened a school with some friends in the Valley called the HotHouse in the early 2000s, and Steph was one of our improv students.
So with improv, honestly, you gotta be quick on your feet. You got to have apparently amazing timing for that. So how does that help you as an actor building those skills?
Well, improvisation is all about listening and having thoughts and reactions to what people are saying. So it's essentially no different than any other acting, except, in scripted television, what you're saying is what the writers wrote, but I'm still listening to what the other characters are saying. I'm still having thoughts and reactions in the moment. So there really is no difference other than when you're doing an improvised show, I'm the one who's generating the dialogue.
It sounds very much like a Meisner style. Is that correct? Of acting?
Not really. It's Viola Spolin, which is much more. Viola Spolin is the one who, and Keith Johnstone, they sort of wrote the book on improvisation. I've also studied with Del Close and a bunch of great people in Chicago. I've never studied Meisner, so I can't really speak to that. I can only kind of speak to the disciplines that I've focused on.
Now, you get to play Captain Shaw on Star Trek Picard Season 3, and I will say the season is so tremendous. Me and my wife love it so much, so I want to thank you for being awesome as Captain Shaw. And,
my pleasure.
And I think the coolest thing about the show is that the introduction of Captain Shaw was brilliant. It was written brilliantly. It was performed in a great way. So how satisfying was it to sink your teeth into that dialogue?
Oh, this is the kind of work that actors long for, right? To get stuff that's so juicy and such a lot of meat on the bone. I say as a vegetarian, but a lot of meat on the bone. And, you long for those scenes that have such depth and conflict with other characters. And then to have a character that is we learn is so deeply tethered to the legacy of the next generation. It's a thrill.
So when you're thinking about how you perform the role, how did you balance playing him in a way that was adversarial without being antagonistic?
Wow, I find those words interchangeable in many ways. So, he is antagonistic. I mean, he certainly stands in the way of their goals. So he is pulling in the opposite direction of what they like. I think part of what you might be asking is, how do you take a character who is unlikable on the page and find a way to get the audience to not just abjectly hate them? I think finding the relatability of a character is important. He's not a villain. So he's an antagonist, and yes, the scenes are actually adversarial. But he's not a villain to the franchise. So I think that is It's also on the page, it's in the writing, and it's hopefully what I like to do with a character is find the moments of levity and find the humor and the relatability.
And I think that's what I like so much about how you did it, is that it wasn't a villainous take on it. It wasn't, twirling my mustache, I'm going to screw you, Picard. It's more, you actually agreed with him on so many logical points. It's like, yes, that would be a bad decision. Captain Trent, don't go with that, what he's saying to you.
Exactly. And that's just it. It's like, if you put the shoe on the other foot and somebody had come apart the Enterprise and said, hey, Picard, I'm going to take your ship in another direction. I'm not going to really tell you why. And you can kind of see that I'm lying to you. And then your first officer, Riker, decides to blatantly disobey an order. Like, there's so much about what Shaw is being put through that people go, yeah, that kind of makes sense, that he'd be not happy.
I mean, do you think it was due to a dislike to Picard, or do you think it was just good common sense about Captain saying, yeah, no, this just sounds fishy?
Well, I think obviously, as he said, their reputation preceded them. So I think he knows where they show up, trouble follows. And I think with that reality and his also deep distrust and animosity towards Picard, I think all of that goes into play. Plus, again, on paper, nobody shows up on your ship without actual direct orders and changes yours.
So, I mean, obviously, this is a little bit of a spoiler, but we know later on in the show, in the series, Shaw learns that Picard's son is the one on the ship that wants to be turned over to the Shrike, and he changes his mind. Basically, says, "Oh shit, okay, we're gonna do this. Then we're protecting the kid." Is this a sense of duty to another officer, or do we think that maybe Shaw was a father? Is there some backstory there that we're not aware of?
Oh, I cannot speak to any specific details about Shaw that haven't necessarily been revealed on screen yet. I can say that he's not a monster, and he also, so yes, all the same things that you're saying, which is, now that it's confirmed that he is the son of an admiral, of course I'm going to protect him. Before, he could have been just a guy bluffing, but once he gets solid confirmation, he's going to protect the guy's son. He's not going to throw him to the wolves, and he's also going to protect the son of an admiral. He's going to protect he is now a citizen of the Federation officially by being Beverly and Picard's son. So I think it's all of those things. I think, and he's got a heart. He's not a heartless man.
I think it was so good, and I think, some of it's the writing, some of it's your portrayal. You added so much complexity to Captain Shaw in such a small amount of time, but he is such a well-rounded character. How much of his backstory were you given without revealing anything, and how much is it just interpretation of what you know from what's on the page?
So when I was hired for the part, Terry Metalis had given me all of the information about the Wolf 359 and what Shaw had been through. So I knew all of that going into the dinner scene, like, the introduction of the character. I had all of his foundational animosity in place. And then I fill in my own blanks as an actor, but the big moving parts, those were established by the writers.
So I think another interesting part about it is that, once again, you told the backstory of the character. Is he suffering from PTSD or the survivor's guilt, or is it both?
Oh, I think it's clearly both. I mean, he says as much. I mean, the PTSD is obviously the fact that this, when it's forced in stark relief to him, when he comes face to face with the man who caused the singular worst day of his life, all of that fear and pain and grief comes right to the surface. And then he literally says, why me? I'm just some dipshit from Chicago. Why me? So that's survivor's guilt. Clearly, he didn't see himself as anything special that deserved to survive any more than anybody else.
Is it
lucky number 10, as he says?
So when he's planning on originally handing over or dealing with the Shrike, was it fear, or is it just a responsibility that no one else is going to be lost that I'm connected to like this? So how much? Look, I obviously think one follows the other. I think his deep trauma,
affects his decision to do everything he can to keep as many people alive as he can. And when he saw Jack was misrepresenting himself, and Jack was a fugitive from the law, and Jack had a laundry list and may or may not be who he says he is, and if his beef is with these people that have nothing to do with Shaw or his crew, then, you know, in many ways they were not in Federation space. So in many ways, Federation laws don't apply to this, from what he perceived, a criminal. And so for the greater good, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. He saw it as a logical reason to hand Jack over to face his own music.
And I think one of the best character moments that he has is that after everything, he technically not doesn't lose a ship, but has to hand over his ship, he gets injured and everything else. He still rolls up his sleeves, as you said, as they say in the show, like a grease monkey, and goes in and helps repair the ship.
Yeah.
How impactful was that moment in how you develop the character in your head that when he goes to do that?
Well, what I love about Shaw is he has this blue collar grace. He is a man who needs to know what's broken, why it's broken, and what parts he needs to fix it. So you give him all the information, and then he can make a sound decision. But when he senses he's being lied to or subverted or whatever, then he's going to slow his process. But he is a man who goes, I need to know. I'm curious. Like, we have engaged. I want to know with whom and why. And so when it comes time to when the fate of the ship is coming down to him rolling up his sleeves and doing his engineer tricks, the things that he can do that other people can't, of course he's going to do it. So it was really fun to go, all right, here's a guy who's in this leadership position, but his first love is popping the hood and fixing the engines. Yeah.
So is his relationship with 7 of 9 repairable, do you think? Or do you think no matter what, if this was to go forward with them on the first and second officer, captain and first officer, this would have to just end? There's no way to go back from what happened.
Oh, I think everything changes a person, right? All your experiences affect who you are. And I think, I think in the fires of catastrophe, new bonds are formed. Obviously, truths are revealed. We hopefully every character evolves in ways based on the jeopardy that they face. Yeah.
And I was thinking of when I was watching the movie The Wrath of Khan, which talked about the Kobayashi Maru and how every captain faces that. And I kind of felt like the Skrike in many ways was that moment. How do you think Shaw did?
I mean, he saved the ship. So I think he did great. I think when and again, what Star Trek at its best is people coming together to solve problems. When Beverly figures out that it's a celestial being about to give birth, and then they figure out that if they loosen the nacelle shells, we could harvest that energy. Okay, well, those nacelle shields, and so on and so on and so on. Everybody steps up to help solve the problems at hand, and Shaw, no less than anybody else, does his part in the solution.
Do you think he demonstrated the best ideas of Star Trek when he held to responsibility better, or when he rolled up his sleeves towards the end, or somewhere in between?
I think they all are part of the same thing, right? Again, like I had said earlier, when given all of the information, Shaw makes very sound decisions. And then, if I can belabor the mechanic thing, each moment requires a different tool. And if the tool is, I'm going to pull rank and decide I don't want to put us in harm's way, then that's the tool he's using. If the tool is literally a tool to help hotwire the nacelle shields, then he will do that, right? So I think it's all the same. It's all coming from the same place.
And I mean, I think the cool thing about Captain Shaw is that I think has already become one of the most beloved characters in the Star Trek franchise. And it happened so fast. And I think everyone, even when he was being a dick, were like, I like that captain. He's so great. What is the appeal? I mean, was it just because you have, just how you approach the character and you do it so well? Is it just the character is so dynamic? Because it really was it's a brilliant character.
Like I think it's a fool's errand to try and determine why something resonated with the people the way it does. I don't have an answer. That's alchemy. That's for other people to decide. What I can say is I was handed a beautifully fleshed out character that is a mix of antagonism and, on paper, antagonism and charm and no nonsense bluntness with his humor, and then deep pathos. You can't help but feel for this guy, and that was all on the paper before it ever got in my hands. And as I say, I am a singer of the song, and so they wrote an amazing song that I try to bring my A game to as the singer of that song. And you just don't know why things work for people or not, but all you can do is be truthful and use whatever skills you have to bring a character to life and make them enjoyable to watch.
So are we going to be seeing a lot more Shaw during this season without giving anything away? Is he still a significant part of the rest of this season?
This salty bastard has a lot more to go. So
Fantastic.
yeah, keep your eyes on it. I mean, what's fun is the way they've spooled out the season is that they've given really each character their due. Like Seven is getting her great moments in Picard, but then you're going to start folding in the rest of the next gen cast that we haven't seen yet. So everybody gets a seat at the buffet. And everybody is integral to the plot of season 3. So yeah, keep your eyes peeled. There's more fun to come.
Are you able to give a wink or a nod if there's been any whispers of a Titan series?
Honestly, without any equivocation, I've heard nothing. No one has spoken to me about any possibilities or anything to that effect. That is not something that has been talked about, other than in the fan community. The fans have been amazing supporting that idea, but nobody in the area of the kingmakers, the decision, the upper brass, as they say, have given me any indication that that's in the works.
I think there's a deep hunger from the fan base to learn more about the crew. I mean, not only Captain Shaw, but in the crew around him. It's such a fascinating group of characters. And I think everyone is thinking to themselves, there's got to be something more.
Look, I love like Joe and Jen and Steph and Ashley. They all, I love the Titan Bridge crew. They are such fine actors, and they're such wonderfully drawn characters and such a great diverse group. Aliens, we got aliens on the bridge. I love it. I love it. And everybody is bringing their A game. So yeah, I love the fact that you want to see more of them.
So what's next for you?
Currently, I have a few episodes of an upcoming show on Apple TV called The Last Thing He Told Me, with Jennifer Garner, that I believe premieres in April. I have a video game that I co-wrote, that is out currently, called Forspoken on the PS5. I have another video game that I'm co-writing that I'm currently working on, Captain America Black Panther game for Skydance New Media with Marvel. And I have my nerdy merchandise shop called the Nerd Circus that I sell groovy wares and nerdy paraphernalia, much of it to do with projects that I'm involved in. And I play a lot of Dungeons and Dragons. So next week I'm going to GaryCon in Lake Geneva to roll some dice and have a laugh and slay some dragons, hopefully.
Oh, that sounds so awesome. So this is on your website. Is there a link I can add to the notes?
thenerdcircus.com is the name of the site, and I sell I have a cocktail book that is a Dungeons and Dragons inspired cocktail book, and I sell dice and dice towers and t-shirts and glasses and assorted groovy wares and nerdy paraphernalia, so people can check that out there. T-shirts, yeah.
That sounds absolutely awesome, sir. I want to thank you so much for coming on the show. You're brilliant.
Thank you.
And please come back to talk about whatever you want to talk about. Thank you.
Absolute pleasure. Thanks for chatting with me, Jeff. Cheers. Bye.